So I think now's a good time for me to weigh in and give my take on this mess that the RFU have got themselves in over the pay of many of their executives, in particular the CEO, Bill Sweeney. He's been paid over 1.1 million, including a massive bonus, making him the highest paid CEO of a governing body in the whole of England. So pretty big story, especially because it's in the backdrop of England losing money in the year, England not doing very well on the pitch, Eddie Jones being sacked, all of that sort of thing. But the CEO and executives seem to be rolling in it, and you've got other employees losing their jobs. So how did it come to this? Well, this is a good article from The Guardian. I'm kind of going to be basing it on it because it sums it up very nicely and I can give my take over the top. But also I think it raises a really interesting point in how sport is run in this country. Now, there's two sides to this. You could either run sport with people who absolutely love the game, but they've got no idea on how to run a business. And when sport changed from amateur to professional, especially rugby, amateur to professional, you had loads of good-meaning people who kind of mucked it up. And they came to the conclusion that you need business people to come in and run this big business. But to me, it feels like they've gone to the other extreme. They're employing competent business people who just don't get it. They don't have that affinity to rugby, to sport. They don't quite understand that this isn't a normal business. Their customers aren't, coming in and buying a car off them. And as long as the car's okay, they don't care how much they're paid, who they fire. That's not how it works. They do care how much they're paid. They do care who they fire. And it's emotional. You can't just take your money, even if maybe you are contractually obliged to that money. And I think that's where this dispute lies. And they're going to have to sort it out. They're going to have to realise that actually, yes, it's a business, but it's also a sport that relies on the goodwill of the general populace to make it work. You can't just be cutthroat like you would in another industry. So Bill Sweeney, he's taken a massive bonus of £358,000. Why? Well, he's hit his targets. And no, this is kind of a bit of devil's advocate. I don't think it's right, but he probably has done the things in his contract that entitled him to this long-term incentive program, and we'll come back to that. And there's been a review, and there's been other articles saying, yeah, we've reviewed it and he is entitled to it. And I'm sure he is. I don't think that's in dispute. He's coming from America, he's coming from business, he's not a rugby guy. That's not his fault. He's been employed to do this job. He's sitting there doing this job, hitting his targets, which can include firing people as well. And that's business. And he said, I've hit all my targets. I'm entitled to my bonus. They reviewed it and said, absolutely you are. But that's not how sport works. You need to be tactful. You need to play the room. You need to listen to the mood music and sometimes go, no, it's not appropriate. We're losing money. People are losing their jobs. We're doing poor on the pitch. I'm going to take a moral stance and not take my bonus. So that sort of thing can happen and has happened before in sport. But if you are getting people in from business, my point is, this is what's going to happen. You reap what you sow. These people are going to say, that's not how the world works. That's not how business works. If you sign a contract with me, you honour it. I'll fulfil contracts with other people. This is just how it goes. And they're kind of right. So they're going to have to start rethinking who they employ and how they employ them, and also get them to understand how rugby works, how the sport works. And ideally, you have people who have rugby knowledge and business knowledge, which there will be many, because yes, rugby is based on a posh system, a private school system. There are many business people with lots of experience who do have an affinity and experience in rugby. So I just think they're going to have to stop headhunting big executives from random companies and start thinking a bit more about the sport itself. And also, I should add on top of this, this was in the period where we had those three clubs, Wasps, Worcester and London Irish, go extinct. Maybe they'll come back, maybe they won't. The whole thing was a mess. But Bill Sweeney stuck to his guns and said, no, I'm entitled to this bonus. This is how the world works. I'm going to take it, rather than saying this is inappropriate. It's also worth discussing how the RFU is structured. You've got, the executives, the board, they run the business. And if you look through all those people on there, sure, there are rugby people on there. Conor O'Shea is obviously directing, the performance, the elite performance. But a lot of these people are just business people because they're dealing with big businesses, filling out the stadium, booking out the stadium, the corporate side, sponsorship, TV deals, all this stuff. So they're running the show. And what's supposed to happen is the RFU Council, which is 60 odd rugby people from all around the country. You've got ex-professionals in there. I think you've got Wayne Barnes, the ex-referee, in there. You've got people from the greater and the good of the club game who have been heavily involved in it at all levels, and they're meant to meet and discuss the good of the game and then hold the board to account. And it looks like in this case they didn't know about this bonus structure, and they need to start sorting out what they need to tell the council. Do they need to be more transparent? They need to put it down in writing that these sorts of things have to be discussed with the council, and it's just become a massive mess. And it's got to the extent where the chairman of the council, Tom Ilube, I don't know how to say it, to be honest, he stepped down because it was getting out of hand and it was creating a controversy with him involved. So he's done the right thing, I guess, although I looked into Tom Ilube, and I'm sure he is an honourable guy, but he didn't seem to be too connected to rugby to be the head of the rugby side of the RFU. Just seems a bit weird, to be honest. I think you need more rugby people involved in these decision-making processes so this sort of thing maybe doesn't unfold how it is. But anyway, that's what's happened. We've got Bill Sweeney refusing to stand down because I'm guessing he's from a business background and he just doesn't understand how this all works. Now, in the thumbnail I said, is it greed or is it ignorance? Well, it's probably maybe a bit of both, I don't know, but it's probably more ignorance because he just doesn't get it. This is not how sport works. It's not as simple as you meet your contractual obligations, you take your money and screw everyone else. It doesn't work. So what's happened is Bill Beaumont's come in, and I think in the short term that makes sense. He is a rugby guy, but he's not a new guy. Obviously, he's been involved in World Rugby, he's the head of that for a long time. He's had plenty of backlash over decisions there. So, yes, he's a rugby guy, so he gets both sides of it, but also he's not a fresh face. I think they do need to kind of sweep out and get new people in, of which I'm sure there are plenty good options. And then we've even got a second mess building where the members, the clubs themselves, have requested a special general meeting to discuss all these problems with pay, with what should happen. But the RFU have looked at it, and all the business types have looked at it and said, yeah, you've got over 100 members, but you've submitted it in the wrong way. Essentially, the paperwork's wrong, so you can't have your meeting. I mean, just absolutely ridiculous. They don't understand this isn't a business selling windows or cars or financial services. This is a sport. And Bill Beaumont's correctly stepped in and said, what the hell are you talking about? Clearly over 100 clubs want a special general meeting, so we're going to blooming well have one. So well done to him for that. So basically, that's my take on it. You've got two sides here. You've got the executives who contractually, legally, they're not wrong. They're entitled to these bonuses because that was their contract. But they should never have been written like that in the first place. They should have been shared with the council so they get their approval. And they've just got to understand that sport is different to business. You've got to have someone who understands both sides of it. You can't just headhunt someone from a company in America and expect it all to work. This is the mess that happens. You've got to understand the optics. You've got to understand that your customers could go away. They could stop attending Twickenham. They could stop playing the sport and everything goes down the tubes. It's not like normal businesses. You've got to be a lot cleverer about it. And they've got to sort this out. They've got to sort out the governance. They've got to have more transparency. They've got to change the leadership. They've got to get more rugby understanding in there. And of course, ultimately, they've got to rebuild confidence with the fans, with the clubs, if they want the RFU England Rugby to prosper. Anyway, please let me know your take on it down below. You know just as much as me, and I love learning from you guys. So pop those comments down below, and I'll catch you next time.